So let me put a question to you. What happens when 4 council by-elections collide with a visibly delighted Nigel Farage and a full-scale panic attack inside both Labour HQ and SNP offices? If you thought the answer was just another routine day in British politics, think again, because what actually unfolded was Reform UK taking a nationwide victory parade. Welcome back to Daily Kingdom. Strap in, because we're about to break down how Nigel Farage's party pulled off a historic breakthrough in Scotland while simultaneously sending shockwaves through Labour and the Conservatives that will echo for months. Let's start with the headline that likely had SNP strategists rubbing their eyes in disbelief. Reform UK has secured its first ever council seat in Scotland. Scotland, the political territory where Reform has traditionally had about as much traction as a snowplough in the Sahara. And yet here we are. The win came in West Lothian, specifically the Whitburn and Blackburn ward, and this wasn't some narrow squeak by. Reform stormed the seat with 32% of the vote. Even more remarkable, they didn't even field a candidate there in 2022. In just 2 years, they went from not appearing on the ballot to topping it. That's not gradual growth, that's political teleportation. But every breakthrough leaves wreckage behind, and Labour bore the brunt of it. As the incumbent party, Labour didn't merely lose this ward, they disintegrated. Their vote share collapsed to 17.1%, a staggering drop of 20.3 percentage points. That's not a swing, that's a demolition. Picture a reigning champion being knocked out in the opening round. The SNP didn't escape the fallout either. They finished second on 28%, but still shed 10.7 points compared to their previous performance. In a seat that once looked like a predictable Labour versus SNP contest, Reform walked in and exposed both as politically flat-footed. Nigel Farage, never one to miss a camera, described the result as a fantastic victory in a seat we weren't expected to win. For once, that's not bravado, it's understatement. Nobody had this on their bingo card. It's the political equivalent of watching a pub quiz team qualify for the Olympics. And that Scottish win matters, a lot, because it smashes one of the last geographical ceilings Reform faced. The party has been gaining ground in England, particularly across the former Red Wall, but Scotland has long operated on a different political wavelength. Constitutional politics, independence debates, and SNP dominance left little space for a party like Reform. Until now. Of course, overnight success in politics is almost never overnight. These victories are the product of long-term message testing, organisational groundwork, and, crucially, the collapse of trust in the traditional parties. Head south, and the story only intensifies. In South Kesteven, Reform picked up 2 seats, both from a standing start. In Belmont, near Grantham, they took 33.4%, edging past the Conservatives by a microscopic 0.3 points. That's not a margin, that's a rounding error, the kind that haunts campaign managers long after the ballots are counted. In nearby Averland, it wasn't even close. Reform surged to 41%, gaining 26.5 points from 0. The Conservatives also jumped to 39.5%, but still came second. The Liberal Democrats didn't even bother turning up, a silent admission that they knew exactly how this was going to end. What makes these results so striking is where they're happening. This isn't metropolitan London or inner-city Manchester, it's rural Lincolnshire, traditionally stable, low-drama political territory. Reform isn't just harvesting protest votes, it's embedding itself across wildly different constituencies. Then came Darlington, Red Wall territory, Labour heartland, and what happened there can only be described as a political bloodbath. Reform took 37.7% of the vote, again from nothing. Labour lost 37.1 points. Let that sink in. Voters didn't drift away, they bolted. The Conservatives didn't benefit either, slumping to 17.3%. This wasn't tactical voting. It was a mass rejection of the political establishment, with Reform standing alone as the outlet for that anger. Yes, there was one bright spot for the old order. In Eaglescliffe West, Conservatives held on with 60.9%, even improving their share. But even there, Reform climbed to 24%, finishing second and continuing their steady encroachment. Reform chairman David Bull summed it up bluntly. Since the May elections, Reform has won more by-elections than Labour, the Conservatives and the Greens combined. That's not noise, that's momentum. The claim that Britain wants reform is campaign rhetoric, but rhetoric backed by hard results. You don't win across Scotland, rural England and the Red Wall in one night by accident. What's driving this? Disillusionment. Labour governs like a party scared of its own mandate. The Conservatives are still staggering from collapse. Into that vacuum steps Reform, unapologetic, recognisable and unfiltered. They're not chasing consensus, they're chasing conviction. And right now, that's working. And this is where things stop being just interesting and start becoming genuinely dangerous for the established parties. Because what we're seeing here isn't a temporary spike or a protest phase that will burn itself out. This looks structural. Voters aren't just borrowing Reform UK for a by-election tantrum, they're moving house. For years, Labour and the Conservatives convinced themselves that voters had nowhere else to go, that no matter how frustrated people became, the system would eventually funnel them back into one of the two big parties. These results blow that assumption apart. Reform isn't acting like a pressure valve anymore, it's acting like a replacement. And that's why panic is setting in behind closed doors. Labour officials will publicly dismiss these results as mid-term noise or local factors. Conservatives will mutter about turnout and weather and tactical voting, but privately, both parties understand exactly what's happening. Their coalitions are breaking apart. Labour's problem is particularly acute. They didn't just lose votes to Reform, they lost their narrative. For decades, Labour claimed to be the natural home of working-class voters, of people who felt ignored by elites, of communities left behind by globalisation and economic change. Now those same voters are abandoning Labour in droves and walking straight into the arms of a party Labour once dismissed as irrelevant. That should terrify them, because Reform isn't winning these voters by outspending Labour or out-organising them. They're winning them by sounding like they actually believe what they're saying. In an age of rehearsed talking points and focus-grouped language, raw conviction cuts through. Even when voters don't agree with every policy, they recognise authenticity when they hear it. Meanwhile, Labour looks cautious, managerial and oddly detached. They talk about stability while voters feel instability. They talk about responsibility while household bills keep climbing. And every time Labour hedges, delays or softens a position, Reform fills the vacuum with certainty. The Conservatives, on the other hand, face an even uglier dilemma. Reform is eating into what used to be their core vote. Older voters, rural communities, socially conservative areas. For Tory strategists, this isn't a warning shot, it's an existential threat. You can't outflank Reform on immigration or national identity without tearing your own coalition apart. And you can't ignore them without bleeding seats. This leaves Britain's political system in an unfamiliar and deeply uncomfortable place. The two-party dominance that defined modern British politics is cracking. Not gradually, suddenly, violently. And once voters realise they have a real alternative, it's incredibly hard to push that genie back into the bottle. What makes this moment especially volatile is timing. These results are landing at a point when trust in institutions is already at historic lows. The cost of living crisis hasn't gone away. Public services are stretched to breaking point. Housing feels unattainable for younger voters, and wages continue to lag behind reality. Against that backdrop, Reform's rise doesn't feel like an anomaly. It feels like a release. The Scotland result underlines that perfectly. Scottish politics has been locked in a constitutional stalemate for years. Independence versus union. SNP versus everyone else. But as everyday pressures mount, voters are looking past that binary and asking a simpler question. Who actually understands how angry we are? Reform's answer doesn't try to please everyone. And paradoxically, that's what makes it powerful. So no, this isn't just about council seats. It's not about bragging rights or one-night headlines. This is about momentum, direction, and a growing sense among voters that the political map they've known their entire lives is being redrawn in real time. The real question now isn't whether Reform UK will keep winning by elections. It's how long Labour and the Conservatives can pretend this isn't happening, and how much of their base will be gone by the time they finally admit it is.